You know, for any democracy with a lot of different kinds of people, there's this one critical question. How do you share power? It's a huge challenge, and getting it right can build a nation up, while getting it wrong can tear it completely apart. Today, we're going to dive right into that puzzle.
So, there's this idea you hear a lot, right? That sharing power is basically the same as dividing a country, and a divided country is a weak country. But is that actually true?
I mean, you can kind of see the logic. If you slice up a pizza, every slice is smaller. But is running a country really like slicing a pizza? We're going to put that idea to the test by looking at two real-world democracies that faced this exact problem and made completely different choices.
All right, first up, let's head over to Sri Lanka. This is a country that decided to go down a path where the majority community would hold all the power. Let's see how that worked out for them.
So Sri Lanka is this beautiful island nation just south of India. And like a lot of countries in that part of the world, it's a real melting pot of different social groups, different languages, and different religions. This diversity is the backdrop for everything that happens next.
And this right here, this demographic chart, is the key to the whole story. You've got a very clear majority. 74% of the people are Sinhala speakers. The biggest minority group? That's the Tamil speakers at 18%. This huge imbalance in numbers is what shaped all the decisions that followed.
So, after Sri Lanka got its independence back in 1948, the new government, which was led by the Sinhala majority, started to put a series of policies in place. First, in 1956, they passed an act that made Sinhala the only official language, completely ignoring Tamil. Then the government brought in policies that gave preferential treatment to Sinhala applicants for university spots and government jobs. And finally, a new constitution was written that said the state would protect and promote Buddhism, which is the religion of most Sinhalese. With every single step, the Tamil community felt more and more pushed aside.
And there's a name for this approach. It's called majoritarianism. It's basically the belief that just because you have more people on your side, you have the right to rule however you want, without even thinking about what the minority community wants or needs. It's a total winner-takes-all mindset.
And the results of all this? Well, that growing feeling of being an outsider, of being discriminated against, it led to tension. Then it led to political demands for more control over their own regions. And when those demands were denied, the distrust just exploded. The country fell into a devastating civil war that went on for decades, costing thousands and thousands of lives and holding the country back for years.
Okay, now let's switch gears and look at our second case study, Belgium. They had a really similar problem with diversity, but they chose a completely different path, one that built a very, very different kind of country.
Belgium is a pretty small country over in Western Europe. But don't let its size fool you. It is also incredibly complex, with these deep linguistic and cultural divides that could have easily torn it apart.
And when you look at the numbers, you really see that complexity. About 59% of the people speak Dutch, mostly in the Flemish region. 40% speak French, and they live in the Wallonia region. So yeah, there's a majority, but it's not this huge, overwhelming majority like we saw in Sri Lanka. And that delicate balance is absolutely crucial.
But things got really tense in the capital city, Brussels, because there, the whole picture was flipped on its head. 80% of the people in the capital were French speakers, while the Dutch speakers, who were the majority in the whole country, were just a small minority in the capital. And that created a really unique and difficult political mess.
So, what did the Belgians do? This is where it gets so interesting. Instead of the majority just forcing their will on everyone, they chose a path of accommodation. Over about 20 years, they actually changed their constitution 4 times to build this incredible power-sharing system. Get this, they required an equal number of Dutch and French-speaking ministers in the central government. They gave a ton of power to new state governments. They created a totally separate government just for Brussels, again with equal representation. And they even created a third type of government, a community government, just to handle things like culture and education for each language group.
And you can literally see the result of this in everyday life. Something as simple as a street sign, written in both French and Dutch, becomes this constant, visible symbol that this is a shared country where every community is respected.
So, there we have it. 2 democracies, both facing ethnic diversity, but they took completely opposite roads. Let's just put them side by side to really see the difference.
I mean, look at this contrast. Sri Lanka's approach was majoritarianism, where the main policy was just majority dominance. The outcome? Civil war and total instability. Belgium, on the other hand, chose accommodation, with a policy of power sharing, and their outcome, peace and stability. The difference could not be more clear.
So this brings us to the really big question. Why is sharing power so desirable? Well, the answer really breaks down into two different but equally important types of reasons. The first reason is what we call prudential. Now, that's just a fancy word that means it's the smart, practical thing to do. It's based on carefully calculating the gains and losses and realizing that sharing power just leads to a better, more stable outcome for everybody involved.
So you've got these two sets of arguments for sharing power. On one hand, you have the prudential or practical reasons. It helps lower social conflict, it makes things more stable, and it avoids the tyranny of the majority, which, as we saw in Sri Lanka, can end up hurting everyone, even the majority. But then there's the moral argument. This point of view says sharing power isn't just a smart move, it's the right thing to do. It's the very soul of democracy, where people have a right to be consulted about how they're governed.
And this quote just sums up that moral case perfectly. A truly democratic government isn't just about winning an election, it's about sharing power with everyone who has to live with the decisions that get made. That's what creates a legitimate government, one that people can actually believe in and support.
So, let's just end with this thought. The Belgian solution. It's really complicated, no doubt about it. Sri Lanka's majoritarian approach, on the other hand, seemed simple and direct. But one of them led to peace, and the other led to war. So what does this tell us about reaching for those easy answers when we're dealing with really complex human problems? That's definitely something worth thinking about.